Anya, who was 14, was referred through to do some mediation with mum after she disclosed to mum that mum's husband had sexually assaulted her. Now, you can't mediate sexual abuse. Mum advised that they were both going for some specialised individual support. So we agreed that once they reached the top of the waiting list, we'd check in to see where they were at, to see whether it was the right time and we were the right service. When they reached the top of the waiting list, Mum advised that they had been engaging in their individual support. So we agreed that we would go ahead with that first consultation meeting where we meet with them individually. And that was where, we were able to work out that we were the right service at the right time, because Anya wanted to find a way of being able to just communicate with mum, open up to her, express what was going on for her. And mum wanted to find a way of getting Anya to do that. But she also wanted to build on spending time together. She felt that that part of their relationship had been lost. So the first family meeting, we generally tend to do the same sort of activity called the prompt list, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a list of sentence starters. And it's to hopefully get them to start talking about how they view their relationship with each other. And for us, we find that really starts to open up the conversation, because there's often a couple of statements within each of their prompt lists that are very similar, so it helps us have a start point. For Anya and mum in their prompt list, what kind of came up was things about wanting to share and hear each other's emotions, wanting to be able to express themselves. So the next session, we decided we really wanted to explore some of the emotions a bit more. We have a tool that's called Human Emotional Needs, and basically it outlines 8 different needs that we have as humans. What we like to try and do is kind of explore those from each person's point of view, because one of the biggest causes of conflict is that we use the same word, but actually we mean something different. So the 2 that we specifically focused on with this family were to be supported and to be understood. And that actually, we spent the whole session looking at that and understanding what that meant for each person. And then they just agreed moving forward that they would just try and really focus on that. In the next session, they'd actually had a bit of a disagreement in that week, so we used the session to explore that. And when Anya and mum were talking about what they'd been arguing about, it kind of triggered something in me about conflict styles, which is another tool that we use with families. And that's where we all have different personality styles. We have introverts, extroverts, loud, quiet people. And we're the same when we argue. Some of us are, quite explosive, always have to have the last say. Some of us hide away from conflict, try and brush it under the carpet. And we have a tool that categorises those into animals. And there are 5 different animals. They all have kind of positives and negatives. It's not that you shouldn't be any one animal. However, there is one animal that we should try to aspire to be more like, which is an owl. And an owl is the sort of person that tries to hear what's going on from everyone and then try and find a way to meet everyone's needs. So we spoke about how they could be more owl-like, and it was agreed that Anya would try to listen, and she would try to kind of almost reframe what mum was saying in a positive way, because she was always taking whatever mum said as a negative, and that mum would try to validate Anya's feelings more. So the next session, they advised that things were improving still, and they had recognised that conflict styles in themselves and other people. In the next session, again, things were still really positive for Anya and her mum. So we spoke about the fact that although there are 6 sessions available to families, and we could almost hold the last session for when we called them in sort of 6 weeks after closure for a refresher session, if they had hit a bit of a bump in the road. And then we got all the work that they'd done and all the tools, so they can see just how far they had come. After Christmas, I gave the family a call to see how they were doing. Mum advised that things were still really positive, but actually it might be quite nice still to have the refresher session anyway. So we met after Anya had completed her exams and completed the refresher session. We talked about all the positives that they had been managing to continue. So they'd been managing still to spend some time together, that Anya had still been expressing what was going on for her. She'd had some difficulties at school, but had managed to kind of speak to mum about that and keep her involved. But then Anya explained how for her she sometimes feels that mum says things in anger but actually are really hurtful. So I actually got out a tool that we call the anger triangle, which goes through the different stages underneath anger: the hurt, the needs, and then the fears. So I got them to think of an example that had happened recently for them and work through that, and then talk about the impact that that has. So when Anya was explaining her fears, they were that mum doesn't love her and that actually she meant some of the words that she was saying. And mum said she had no idea, and actually that was never her intent. And so then we looked at how we can manage our anger so we don't displace it and take it out on those closest to us. Without our mediation, I'm not sure that Anya and mum would have a relationship. I think they would have become very individualised, living on parallel lines. They wouldn't have been communicating. There would have been a lot of conflict if and when they were communicating. I think Anya would have ended up staying in her room completely and coming out literally just to go to school or to socialise. I don't know necessarily that mum and Anya would have had that connection there. I think there would have been that barrier between them.